Hey there, everyone. It's Camber here with The Great Retention, sponsored by the Yo Pro Know. I'm Camber, your young professional expert and founder of the Yo Pro Know, where we bring you the answers you need to know about how to hire and retain the best talent, starting with the young professionals you work with. There are a lot of young professional fish in the sea, but what do you do once you catch them, and how do you reel them in? That's where we come in. Today, I am so excited to have Ramon Nieves-Lugo, principal at UniComm Media Group, or UMG, as we like to say, joining us here from Greenville, South Carolina. He will be the chair of Fall for Greenville next year, which for those of you in the audience from Greenville, you know what a big deal that is. And so I'm sure we'll hear more about that. And we actually met several years ago when I was just starting out in my young professional career. While we have not seen each other in several years, I love that we have reconnected through this podcast. I invited him to be on the show because media is, of course, omnipresent today, and Ramon knows a thing or two about marketing and advertising. Not to mention, with his background, he understands the importance of knowing the different cultures presented in our region. Today, we are going to cover marketing trends specifically pertaining to young professionals in the Millennial and Gen Z generations. We'll also cover why it's important to accept the multiple working generations in the workplace, which act almost as different cultures in itself. Ramon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I know that was such a long introduction, so okay. I would love to know, I know I missed some things, so tell us a little bit more about your background, and then we'll dive more into the details.
Well, I was born in Puerto Rico, born and raised, so people ask me, were you born here? No, it's like I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and that's what I learned English. So my second language is English, first language is Spanish, so I apologize to the audience if I say something and it's like, what? It's just I'm thinking Spanish to English. But that's where I'm from. I'm from, born and raised there, and then came here to Greenville, study marketing at Bob Jones University, and really didn't look back since I've come to really love this area. We love our family moved here. And now I'm married. I have a daughter who's 3. And
what's her name?
Olivia. And so she started school this time around, K3. So very excited. And again, it's just, I love this topic that we're talking about today, but that's a little bit personal, you know, professionally, but just, you know, started a Hispanic marketing focused agency here in Greenville. Most people think it's like, why not Miami or New York or LA or Texas? It's just, I wanted to do something different. I was inspired by other agencies that started here, and I was thinking, I can do it. You know, we could do it. And I started that with my brother, 2009, 2010, and just loved every bit of it, you know, working with clients locally and now nationally. So we're doing a lot of great things, a lot of good data. And we're going to have some news coming up soon. We might be in Times Square, our ad. We're going to be running an ad in Times Square.
Wow.
So for Hispanic Heritage Month. So we're excited about that. So we got a few things to share on LinkedIn and things like that. So.
Okay. Well, after the interview, we will definitely make sure people know. I want to hear more about that. And we will talk about that in a second, but we'll make sure to connect people to you so that they can see that important announcement.
Thank you.
I would love to stay connected on that. But before we talk more about UMG, I want to ask you a little lightning round question, is what I like to call it. So while you're a young professional yourself, I do want to make that known. Tell us a little bit about an experience or maybe experiences that you've had with other young professionals in a working atmosphere.
Yeah, you know, I thought about that question, and the one that really drew me, and actually just relived it a couple of weeks ago with an email, was that we had a young guy working with us. And in the emails to client facing, he was using acronyms, and he was actually interacting with the client in a certain way that he will interact with their friends. And we catch that on. We're just thinking, hey, why? What does this mean? Or what are you doing? And it's just this is just a question or this and that. And like, yes, but you know, this is a professional setting. Like we have to it's more client facing. It's an email that goes to people. It's not internal. So that was actually hilarious. And also is a kind of eye-opening experience, because I already was used to that. I was like, you know, you just don't do that. And it was just recently I got an email from an intern from another company saying, hey, I have a queue. And it's this, and that. And I'm like, a queue? It's a question. Oh my word. Like, but you're seeing that come through. Like this whole no cap and queue and just these acronyms of things that are just, so it's very interesting that it's impacting the workplace. And I think it was just funny. For me, it was just
really funny.
Real experience that I've just did not forget, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you being in marketing, I'm sure you've seen a lot of reels and TikToks making fun of that.
Yeah.
And it's like a millennial saying, you know, a millennial's hanging out with their Gen Z counterparts and they're trying to keep up with the lingo. And that's really interesting, though, when you bring clients into the mix and communicating with clients. So that's really important. And I would like to dive into that a little bit more. But first, tell us more about UMG and how did you get there? I know you said started in 2010, but tell us a little bit more for those in the audience who don't know.
Started in 2010, and just it really was the idea behind it was to how do we help clients understand better the Hispanic community? I've been working with the Hispanic community here in Greenville and the upstate, and my background was marketing, and I had a good friend that said, "Hey, why don't you start an advertising agency that helps reach the Hispanic market?" And so it really came down to that mission of ours was to elevate not only our clients' brand in the Hispanic community, but also elevate the Hispanic culture. And that's what I love about our dual mission here is that I've been in meetings where, there will never be a client of ours, and that's okay. But we're talking about the Hispanic community. We're talking about things that could change their mindset. And I love doing that. And that I come out of those meetings with just a better, like a better reward than just like a signed contract, just because I know I made a difference. And so that has helped us a lot in growing our agency. It was just me and my brother. And now, we got 12 employees. We got clients nationally, internationally. Like I said, we are going to be soon putting an ad in Times Square for a client that we're launching. And it's going to, that is a big milestone for us. We just done really well. And I'm just thankful to God, just to let him open those doors. So it's been awesome just to, those things like that.
Well, that's amazing. And I think the thing I kind of heard out of that is there's really a mission that you're fulfilling. You're like, even when you're in meetings with people that will never sign a contract with you, you are changing their mindset.
Exactly. And that's the thing. We're helping brands tell their story in the Hispanic market. But in order to do that, we got to help the brand understand who the Hispanic community is. And so that's an excellent starting point. And I'm telling you, it's been a life-changing experience. And I love it every sense of it.
Well, congratulations on a very successful career and all the things you'll continue to do.
Thank you.
Knowing that you have 10 plus years of experience in the marketing world, really, it's probably 15 years. 15 plus years in the marketing world. What are some of the current trends that you're seeing now that are important for the businesses in our audience today to know, specifically as it pertains to recruiting and retaining young professionals? Yeah,
I mean, that I will never stop learning, right? But that is a challenge. That is a challenge of what's going on, especially with the millennial and Gen Z group. Is how do you got to understand first. It's like what they're seeing. They're seeing people on Twitch playing video games and making money out of it. You got to understand that they're on TikTok. Making videos and they're creating all these followers. And so, the big trend that I'm seeing is the rise of this nano-influencer. This mega influencers out there, right? That has 1 million followers or more. But this nano-influencer that has 20, 25, 50,000, even 100,000 followers, they're making money out of that. And you're seeing people doing that on TikTok, creating that. And so that's a big trend that we're seeing is just the nano-influencer. So how can a business leverage those nano-influencers into their messaging? And the other one is like, and it's really not a trend, but it's just been a constant. So when you're talking to that generation, is that YouTube still is a big vehicle to reach a younger audience, especially Gen Z, Gen X, millennials. It's there. And so, that on top of TikTok, so how do you leverage your company's message or who you are? What are you doing for the community? How are you impacting the community through those channels that are getting to that community and making a difference? So it's really out there instead of just like putting something on Facebook and hopefully someone will see it. No, they're not there anymore.
Right. And these opportunities seem so within reach to people because it's, I can do this and I can get 10,000 followers and then I can start making some money on the side. This generation is extremely entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And so, especially Gen Z.
Yeah.
And so that mixed in, I love your point about seeing how companies can engage maybe some nano-influencers in a way to market better to young professionals. I think that's really important for people to hear.
Yeah,
so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Research also shows that social media plays a very strong part in marketing and recruiting to these young professionals. So what is your personal experience with this? So do you have clients that have maybe utilized social media to recruit or retain? So basically what we just spoke about, but is anybody actually applying that based on your experience?
We did. Yeah. We actually had a client that we did. We hired 2 local influencers, nano-influencers.
Really?
And that's what we did every week. We were talking to the community about why is it great to work with this company and what are their benefits, and we changed the titles different here and there, but it was really it was different. They've never done something like this before. They've always done some type of radio or online, but we did push other things in radio and things like that. But the difference here was like these influencers talking about the company and what they're doing and talking, interviewing people. So that's really something we did, and yielded results for them.
Wonderful. And what was that cost to do something like that? Like, what was the cost of having an influencer come in for a company?
It really varies. There's these influencers, sometimes they could do it, they're happy to do it for you in exchange for any goods or services that you offer. For this client like this, we budgeted about, I'll say like about $1,000 a month for the nano-influencers to compensate them for their time and their ideas. Because that's the other thing about it, is like, you gotta let them have that creative freedom to get your business out there. You can't just be like, oh, and by the way, here's the parameters. You can't just do that. So it's important for the business to give them creative freedom.
I think that's a really important point. And I would love, before we kind of move on to the culture piece of today's episode, because I do want to talk about the many different cultures that are working in the workplace today. But I want to touch on one final kind of media focused question, which is a little bit of a curveball for you. So
all right,
get excited.
Cool.
I think a lot of companies wonder, well, I don't think it's professional for us to be on TikTok, or I don't think it's professional of us to do reels on Instagram, because they think they have this preconceived notion about what it means, like it's, a bunch of dances.
Yeah.
What would you say to those companies about being on video? Because right now video is taking over. Yeah,
the same thing I would say is like, look back at the companies that said, oh, I will never be on YouTube back when it came out. You know what I mean? Like it's just, I tell people it's a wave that it's there, it's coming. You either ride it or let the wave come over you. Like you just have to. I mean, if you're not there, your competitors are there. And I know I've seen them. I've seen the competitor, being there. I've seen them there. So you really need to understand, like, how do we leverage this platform? If that's where your audience is and you're using social media platforms, you say, okay, how can we leverage this platform to still communicate what we're doing? It's really important, like, to say again, if the audience is there, then do it. If it's not, I understand, you don't have to be there, but there might be some growth there later on. But you just, I just say, like, it's a fab. It's here to stay.
Yeah.
And it could be as TikTok today. It could be something else tomorrow. But video, this type of content like this is consumable content like this. It's not going anywhere. It's going to grow.
That's great. I think people need to hear that from you, because they're not going to listen to me when I say it. So thank you for saying that. You're welcome. Now talk to us a little bit more about understanding the various working generations that are right now in the workplace. So there's 5 working generations. And oftentimes in my work with the Pro-No, I see just a lot of conflict and tension between those generations. So how do people work together? It's a loaded question. I guess we don't have much time today.
We don't have a lot of time.
But in your professional opinion, in your experience, with the Hispanic community and trying to elevate that, in your experiences, what have you learned that you can share with us?
Yeah, I've thought about that question, and I've heard like experiences, and what I've heard is that disconnect, right? There's a big disconnect between the manager, director, executive level, and the worker, the coordinator, whatever that level is, because they're younger. And that disconnect is a lot of things. It's like work ethics. Like, when I was growing up, I was doing this and that. I was like, well, they're growing up differently. So I'll ask for people that are in leadership, that are just a different generation, maybe sit back and think about what is this generation looking for? Look back and say, like, what they want. Listen first to them to maybe see if there's a way for you to have a positive influence, and even talk about that. It's like, talk about, like, why don't you want to be in the office 5 times a week? Well, I want to be in the office 5 times a week. Like, have a conversation. I'm not saying here's the, but at least I think if we go somewhere is by having a conversation. And I think the leader in that has to start that, either be the business owner, director, whoever that is. You need to start that, having that conversation, ask why, and have an open mind, understand, like, why they want to, I don't blame the generation that's saying, hey, I want to work 3 times a week in the office and then twice. Because there's work-life balance, right? This is work-life harmony thing that we want to do. And I know we encourage that for people. And guess what? That's what they see with other companies. Other companies are encouraging, like Airbnb just announced, like, employees can work from anywhere. Hey, some companies can do it, some others don't. I understand. You know what? As your company, all I ask you is, like, have the conversation. Like, ask why. Don't just be like, mandate, this is it. Just ask, start having that conversation to then see how can we work on something.
So many companies that I speak to or work with, they just never ask. And how do you know what your young professionals really need to be successful? We don't want to just do everything that any generation wants. We want to help them and do what they need in order to be successful, because it'll ultimately have bigger impacts on your business, right? Yeah. So I think that's an amazing point, and I'm so glad you brought it up. But it does start from leadership. So in our last few minutes together of this episode, Ramon, tell us, in your opinion, as a growing number of young professionals enter the workforce and the Gen Xers and the baby boomers begin to retire, where do you see the biggest challenge?
In our agency, we've really invested on a data platform that does a lot of surveys and really gives us first party data. And one of the big things that I just pulled it up, just kind of seeing, is that this millennial Gen Z group is looking at the values of the company. About 60% of those that are looking for a job or are wanting a job want to see the values of that company. They really want to see, what are those values? Are you paying your workers fairly? Are you supporting, anything diversity and inclusion? And we're seeing that in the stats. It's like they're saying, the reason I want this job, the reason why I want to get this job is because this company is supporting us in a diversity or an inclusion way, or they're supporting those efforts. So think about that data is out there, and then we're seeing it right now. So it's definitely like thinking, what are those values that you're sharing out there? If you're not sharing any values, your workers, at least your young ones, are not going to stay there for long. May not even encourage other people to come. So share those values, right? And the second one is like, how is your work environment encouraging upskill? How is your work environment encouraging people to be better at what they do? I always ask people, it's like, there's some people that might not be entrepreneurs, but they might be intrapreneurs, meaning they might start businesses within your own business, get them to do that. And I love that, seeing people grow, because they can take a risk, but it's not a big risk. So how does that environment tolerate that risk? And how do you help them upskill, upgrow? Big things on that. But that's really kind of what the biggest challenges they're seeing, is that disconnect between those two things. And I'm hoping that could help the challenge, share those values. How does your work environment helping grow individuals?
And I think that your point about having, really encouraging that entrepreneurial spirit and encouraging having those side businesses, right, is really important, because again, this generation is very entrepreneurial in nature, but it helps you be more successful in your actual business. Yeah.
I mean, you saw that through COVID, and now, I mean, you can start today a Shopify store and sell Amazon. I mean, there's countless of videos of people are saying, sell today, have $50,000 in your bank tomorrow, and people are falling for some of that stuff. But so seriously think about, they're getting exposed of that entrepreneurship. They want to do it. How can you encourage it? If there's a way for you to encourage it, how can you do that?
Absolutely. Well, This has been really wonderful today. I think that we probably could be sitting here for another hour.
Oh, I know. I would love to.
But are there any last minute words of advice that you feel like we didn't cover today that you'd like the audience to know, whether it's about your business or marketing in general?
No, I know there's a lot of conversation about recession. There's a lot of things going on about that. I think it's just, stick to your values. Stick to, if you don't have any or are trying to communicate those, really look into those, see how can you leverage that and ask. Now is the time to start asking. I tell people it's like, the time is not when the recession's hitting and other things. No, now it's time to ask people, ask your employees, how you doing? What can we do better? And I love doing that. And I heard it from one of our employees, team members, and I say, keep encouraging conversation if possible.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to end the interview. Thank you so much, Ramon, for being here today.
You.
Thank you again for joining us for The Great Retention with Camber Parker. Before you go, remember this. Young professionals make up nearly half of the workforce today, and they are expected to jump at a rapid pace in this decade. What will you do as business leaders to help them become the next great leaders we need for the future? Join us next time for more information on how to recruit and retain young professionals. And before you go, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps others know where to find next episodes about this topic. And also, don't forget to share with your coworkers. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.